Beyond the buzzer, inside the game, this is SportsIQ with Larry Smith.
And it's a Monday. Glad you're with us here on the SportsIQ. I'm Larry Smith. Tony Cordero is our producer. Josh Ewing's our editor. First Monday of the new month, August. We are just zipping right on by. 2025. Every day is paradise, right? We had a good weekend. Here. Hey, for once, I've talked about the travel issues of going back and forth to Atlanta every weekend. For once, it was pretty minor. Sitting next to Steve on the flight back out of Atlanta. Steve, hope you're having a good week. Here's what's cool about our society. We spend so much time all the negative and picking sides, and it's the other side's fault, and you did this. Well, don't talk about me, because what about you? And all the what about. Here's what's awesome about our society, and this is 99% of people. I don't know this guy from anything. Was wearing a nice sport coat, complimented a sport coat. I love my clothes. And the guy, he's a Cubs fan, right? He's from Central Iowa. His name is Steve, from Central Iowa. And I mentioned, I grew up a Cubs fan. Not as much anymore. I always used to watch the Cubs as a kid. Grew up. He pulls out his phone. He's watching the bottom of the ninth, right? Cubs have 2 on, 2 out, guy at the plate. Pulls out his phone, and he pulls it over so I can watch the game as well. Now, I didn't ask to watch the game, but I did. I watched the end of the game. We had a great conversation. I'm like, that's our society. That's who we are as a people. We find something we have in common, and we go. We had a great conversation, and I gave him some. I'm not a big foodie, but I gave him a few recommendations. For restaurants. Hopefully it works out for him and he has a good stay and everything else. But it was really, Steve, thank you for listening. Thank you very much just for being so hospitable. So that's who we are. Hey, listen, a good show coming up. We've got lots to cover. A couple of headlines here. The sun may not set in Boston, and hopefully it doesn't freak you out. It shouldn't, but we'll explain. Also, a bit later, the reason why you should not rent out your house to strangers to host poker games. Okay. Just a little word of the wise. We're here to help. All right. Let's get some stories here for you here on this Monday. Training camps, of course, NFL continue with the first week of preseason games that's slated for this weekend. Meanwhile, off-field news continues to make headlines in Washington. Wide receiver Terry McLaurin requesting a trade from the team as that contract holdout continues. Now, he's under contract for 2025, but wants to renegotiate that deal. Currently has him outside the top 15 best paid in his position. He's a Pro Bowler. The pass catcher telling reporters prior to training camp that he was, quote, disappointed and frustrated, end quote, over a lack of productive contract talks with team brass. Meanwhile, in Dallas, things just keep getting uglier with the Micah Parsons situation. The Pro Bowl linebacker also requesting a trade. Maybe they can be traded for each other. I don't know. This past weekend, after his dealings with the Cowboys and owner Jerry Jones been at a stalemate, the 26-year-old looking to become the NFL's highest paid non-quarterback. And his stats certainly back up that desire. First player in league history that has started his career with 4 double-digit sack totals. The team did pick up his 5th-year option, but Parsons wants to do a long-term deal to stay in Dallas. You would think this would be a no-brainer for the Cowboys, who have never had serious money issues, right? I mean, they're one of the wealthiest teams in sports. One stat line, though, Jerry Jones and the Cowboys need to look at. Since Parsons entered the league, when he is on the field, Dallas has the best expected points allowed rating of any team in the league. When Parsons is off the field, they drop to the worst rated defense in terms of expected points allowed. So, as John Malkovich said in the movie Rounders, pay that man his money. That's what I'm talking about. And also, listen, I'm not here to bust on Jerry Jones or the Cowboys, but they don't, it just feels like they don't do this kind of thing well. The Dak Prescott thing was one. They kept kind of doing the 1-year deal, and they finally did a big, massive contract. It hampers the salary cap, where other teams, the Chiefs, the Bengals, the Ravens, the Bills with their quarterbacks, with the Eagles with their quarterbacks, and these massive deals that pay the quarterback an average of $50 million per season. They did these ahead of time so they could kind of work in play within the rules and work in the bonus money and all that. It doesn't seem like Dallas does that. And if they do, I apologize, and I'm just being ignorant. But, I mean, it just doesn't seem like they do that. Here's a case with this guy. Clearly, again, the numbers are there. Speaking of the NFL, great weekend in Canton, Ohio. The 2025 class of Hall of Famers inducted. Four-person class: Jaron Allen, Eric Allen, Sterling Sharp, and Antonio Gates, the smallest since 2005. But let's be honest, those are four of the best players from the 90s and 2000s. Gates, one of the greatest receiving tight ends ever, having 955 catches for more than 11,800 yards, 116 touchdowns during a 16-year career. Figures that ranked fourth, and first, respectively, all-time among tight ends. And 24th, 31st, and 7th all-time, respectively, among players at any position. He revolutionized the game. And by the way, a quick note, Gates, also the answer to a trivia question. Antonio Gates is the first player inducted into the Hall of Fame who did not play college football. He was a basketball player at Kent State. And you recall Tony Gonzalez, you may say, oh, he played basketball. Yeah, but Tony also played football at Cal as well. So again, Antonio Gates, one of those. We saw other basketball players follow his lead after that. The speeches were all very well received. For some of them, you couldn't find a dry eye in the house when they were done. One final note, by the way, we love this. Hall of Fame coach Marv Levy, who was inducted into the Hall back in 2001, turned 100 years old yesterday. Happy birthday, Marv. Great coach of the Bills. And all those Super Bowls, we remember what he did for that franchise. All right, Major League Baseball. First full week of August now, fresh off the trade deadline. The race now for every division except the AL Central, all with no more than 3 games separating first and second. So that's what kind of thrill we've got here coming down the stretch. In the NL East, Christopher Sanchez pitched 8 sparkling innings. Kyle Schwarber hit his 38th homer. And the Phillies beat the Tigers 2-0 Sunday night. Meanwhile, the Mets struggling out in San Francisco. The Giants riding a Rafael Devers 3-run blast. Rookie Carson Whisenhunt pitched 5 1/3 strong innings for his first career win, 12-4 rout of New York. So Philly took 2 of 3 in their weekend series. The Mets, meanwhile, dropped 2 of 3 to the Giants. So the Phillies moved back into first place in the NL East, a half game better than the boys in blue. But again, still a long way to go. In the Central, Bryce Turing hit 2 2-run homers. The Brewers completed their first season sweep of the Nationals with a 14-3 win on Sunday. Milwaukee also setting a club record for a 3-game series with 56 hits. The Brewers also scoring 60 runs in their 6 wins over the Nationals this season. You know, they are one of the great stories here in baseball here as we get into midseason. It's just been a lot of fun to watch what they've done and how they've continued to grow. Things a bit dicier for the Cubs in Chicago, tied 3-3 going into the bottom of the ninth. Justin Turner, 2-run homer in the ninth. Cubs, the 5-3 win over the Orioles after they lost on Saturday, the game I was watching on Steve's phone. Leading off the ninth, Dansby Swanson reached a throwing error on third baseman Justin Westberg. Manager Craig Counsell then sent Turner to the plate to hit for Michael Busch. Turner takes the first pitch he saw, a 92-mile-an-hour fastball, deep to left center for the game-ending shot and his 3rd homer of the season. By the way, with the win, the Cubs remain just 2 games back of the Brewers. Out west, the Dodgers maintained their 3-game lead over the Padres, both teams getting the win on Sunday. LA got the better of the Rays with a 3-0 win. Freddie Freeman scored 1 run and drove in another to snap LA's 18-inning scoreless drought. They've really had some problems scoring here in these past few weeks. Despite the drought in offense, the Dodgers did manage to take 2 of 3 from the Rays over the weekend. Meanwhile, San Diego's Dylan Cease allowing 1 hit over 5 innings. Newly acquired outfielder Ramon Laureano went deep as the Padres cruised to a 7-3 win over the Cardinals. Robert Suarez worked 1 inning and earned his 32nd save. In the junior circuit, all eyes on the AL East, where the top 3 teams are separated by just 4.5 games. The Red Sox become the hot story around the majors. Back on June 12th, the Sox were 2 games under 500, 9.5 back of the division-leading Yankees. But on Sunday, Boston completing a 3-game sweep of the West Division-leading Astros with a 6-1 win as they get the win. Story and Rafaela consecutive RBI singles in a 6-run 4th inning filled with 5 Houston mistakes. Ugh. It's terrible. Boston gets its 5th straight win. Blue Jays maintain the division lead, though, despite losing on Sunday to the Royals 7-4. In this one, Kansas City scored 5 in the 10th while taking 2 of 3 from the AL East leading Blue Jays. By the way, quick trivia note for you Royals fans. Kansas City has won 9 straight series-ending games and are 24-2 in series enders this season. And just think, if they could just break even in the first 2 games of the series, where they would be right now. It's kind of a cool thing. The Yankees' woes continue in Miami. Kyle Stowers, a 3-run homer. Marlins complete the first sweep of the Yankees in franchise history. 7-3 win. The Marlins now, they won all 3 games against the Yankees as they reach 500 for the first time since April 15th and become the first major league team to go from 16 or more games under 500 to a 500 record since the Rays did it back in 2014. By the way, Miami now 24-24 against the Yankees, including the postseason, becoming the only franchise the Yankees don't have a winning record against. The Yankees, by the way, just 4-6 in their last 10 outings. Kind of a crazy thing there. Okay, that's the baseball story of finishing out the weekend. Now stay with us. We still have more to come. WNBA we're talking about. Also a new feature on the way. It's August. College football is here, and we begin to count down our top 25 teams in college football. Producer Tony will have that a bit later on in the show. We'll also talk more about the poker games that went awry and why someone might spend 5 years in prison as a result. And again, where will the sun set? All that's still on the way here in the Sports IQ.
Life can be full of risks. One thing you shouldn't take a risk with ever is your family's health insurance. If you're self-employed or you now need affordable health insurance, you need to make this free call right now and see how the Health Insurance Helpline can help you get it. We specialize in helping the self-employed and people just like you that need affordable health insurance to get it. We have short and long-term health insurance plans, and some even cover dental, vision, and prescription drugs. Don't take a risk with your family's health insurance. It's not worth it. If you're self-employed or now need affordable health insurance, call right now and learn for free how to get it. Listen, affordable health insurance plans for everyone just like you are a free phone call away. So give us a shout right now.
800-373-8414. 800-373-8414. 800-373-8414. That's 800-373-8414.
Paramedic, firefighter, police officer. Different job titles, one common goal: to keep communities safe. They all risk their lives every day responding to emergencies. Just because they accept their jobs can be hazardous doesn't mean they have to be. Is your workplace safe for everyone? Learn more about the Put Yourself in Our Boots campaign at ourboots.ca. This message brought to you by the John Petropoulos Memorial Fund.
You're listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Hey, welcome back. You know, one game that didn't involve division leaders was the cool game they played, the Speedway Classic in Bristol, Tennessee, at the Motor Speedway there. I love this. You know, they did a few years ago. They played some college football games there. The Tennessee versus Virginia Tech was one I remember pretty well. This is one, the Braves and Reds. Actually, it was delayed from Saturday because of weather. And so it turns out that the Braves beat the Reds 4-2. Eli White, the 3-run homer, also had a solo shot as well for the 4-2 victory. And a great story with the pitcher. Hurston Waldrop was on the mound. He was brought up from AAA Gwinnett, which is the AAA team that sits actually in the Atlanta suburbs. Drove about 250 miles to Bristol Motor Speedway early Sunday morning, and he said he got up at 4:45, got in the car a little after 5, and drove here with his girlfriend. Got here at 9:45 or so. So how about that? He's 1-0 on the season, getting his first win, beginning of the day in AAA, and ending it with a win at Bristol Motor Speedway. How cool is that? Pretty neat stuff there with the Braves and the Reds over the weekend in baseball. Listen, anytime you do something like that, I love NHL, the Winter Classics being played at NFL stadiums. Anytime you get a chance to do something out of the ordinary, I'm a fan of seeing these games being played overseas or being played in different venues that are unusual. Michigan State and Gonzaga playing on a, Air Force, naval carrier, whatever it was, in San Diego, outside. I just think it's just great for college, for sports overall. The Iowa women's basketball team playing at Kinnick Stadium, Caitlin's senior year, and a big one over DePaul that they had playing outside. with 55,000 there. I think all that is fantastic. Speaking of Caitlin Clark and the W, she still is out, and it still does not matter for Indiana. They got their 5th straight win, not only their longest winning streak of the season, it's that ties their longest winning streak in the last 10 years. And they've done all of this as Caitlin is still out with injury, that groin injury that they just list her as day-to-day. But she has now missed more games this season than she has played. So again, what kind of problem is this for the Indiana Fever? Right now, it's okay. They held off a late rally at Seattle to beat the Storm 78-74 for their 5th straight win. Natasha Howard scored 21 points. Aaliyah Boston had 16 and 12 rebounds. Another double-double for her. By the way, her run of 9 straight Indiana points in the middle of the 4th put the Fever up 73-61 with 4:41 to play in that one. Boston and Howard both with double-doubles. Then the Friday night win they had at Dallas. Kelsey Mitchell coming up big as well. Ari McDonald was big. This is a team that's finding different ways to win right now without Caitlin. And again, there's no sign of Caitlin coming back anytime soon. She's still day-to-day. We'll see what happens. Meanwhile, though, Indiana's playing very good basketball right now. In Connecticut, Sabrina Ionescu scoring 36. Emma Miesemann, she's returned now to the Liberty, 11 points in her return. And the Liberty snapping a 4-game slide, 87-78 win over Connecticut on Sunday. John Quill Jones added 21 points and 9 rebounds for New York. They're now 18-10 on the year, by the way. New York also played again without All-Star Brianna Stewart for a 4th straight game because of her bruised knee. And so with John Quill Jones coming back, that's huge. But now you lose Stewie. But here's the thing, though. You bring in Emma Miesemann, and we had talked to Megan McEwen talked on the Ion show a couple of weeks ago. What a big pickup that is for the Liberty, because here's a team now that coming in. She's not just any player. She's someone who was the Finals MVP back in 2019 when Washington went all the way and won their only WNBA title. So here's a player who knows the game. She's a veteran, and she will add so much to this team coming off the bench now for New York. And again, they seem to be a team that will be just one of the best in the league once everyone is healthy. By the way, this does, Connecticut's win, this does help get revenge for the surprising loss they had just Friday night, where the same 2 teams played and Liberty lost that one in a shocker. It just was so they get that win back. Connecticut, by the way, that was just their 5th one on the season, but they fall yesterday. Atlanta continues to be in the thick of things as well. Brianna Jones, 23 points. Alicia Gray, 22. The Dream taking down the Mystics, 99-83. Washington rookies Kiki Irifit and Sonia Citron, 22 points and 16 points respectively in that losing effort. Meanwhile, things in Chicago just not going well at all. Kalia Copper with 25 points. Alyssa Thomas, a triple-double. She does it again. Phoenix Mercury beating Chicago 83-67 Sunday night, handing the Sky their 8th straight loss. Thomas with 10 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists for her 2nd triple-double with the Mercury and her 13th in the regular season overall in her career. Wow. By the way, during this 8-game skid, the Sky are now, they have now lost by an average of almost 21 points per game. Ouch. Meanwhile, the Lynx awaiting news on MVP frontrunner Nafisa Collier and her status after leaving Saturday's game against the Aces with an ankle injury. It occurred just under 30 seconds to go in the 3rd as she tried to bring down an offensive rebound. Minnesota was leading by 43 points at the time. Collier visibly in pain after suffering the injury as she walked off the court toward the locker room with assistance. She did not return to the game, didn't need to. They were routing the Aces. But guard Kayla McBride said that Collier was, quote, in good spirits in the locker room afterwards. So again, we're hoping for that. Nafisa Collier, the veteran out of UConn, just having a tremendous season, leading Minnesota to the best record in the WNBA right now. Now, off the court, it appears that the Connecticut Sun will be staying put for at least another year before moving to Boston, or maybe longer. So the Boston Globe reporting on Sunday that Boston Celtics minority governor Steve Pagliuca has reached an agreement with the Mohegan Tribe to buy the Sun for a record $325 million, the highest price tag for a women's sports franchise in U.S. history. He also intends to spend $100 million on a new practice facility in Boston. The Sun would play home games at TD Garden, where they played 2 games over the last couple of years. They sold out the arena, by the way, on both occasions. Now, but then this morning, the Globe reporting, hang on, quotes from the team president, who again is under a non-disclosure, you really can't discuss the deal, but says, listen, there's something there. It has to first go to the league and the board of governors for approval. Now, the Boston Globe also reporting today that there may be some talk about the league rejecting this deal, forcing the Sun to sell to a Connecticut-based owner and saving Boston for a future franchise team, say, after these current teams go in, Portland, Toronto next year, Detroit, Cleveland, Philadelphia, 28, 29, 30, sometime after that. That's what the Globe is trying to say. So could that happen? Here's the thing. Who knows how much franchises will be at that point? The record $325 million is a record because, look, again, we've said just a few years ago, we've reported right here in the space, we've talked about that the New York Liberty were sold for less than $20 million just a few years ago. The new owners put the money in. Of course, everything is up right now, and that's a franchise now worth, you paid $20 million, is now worth $400 million. We've talked about Joe LaCobe, the principal owner of the Golden State Warriors, putting down $50 million for a franchise fee, or for an expansion fee, I should say, to get the Golden State Valkyries. They have sold out every game already, and already they are viewed as the most valuable team in the WNBA at $500 million. So while there has been some talk about the Sun being sold, of course, the Mohegan Tribe has said, look, we admit that we probably need to do the best for the team. We don't really have the facilities here to move up. They play in one of the smallest arenas. Where they practice is actually a communal space there at the casino. So they admit that right now, maybe their situation is not the best that they have for the WNBA. So we will see what happens. They may be moving to Boston in 2027, or they may not. But at least we have some details right now in terms of what the price looks like. And when you consider that expansion teams, those expansion fees are going for $250 million, $325 million for an established team, plus $100 million on a practice facility really isn't that far out of the way. Hey, let's get back to the Hall of Fame this weekend, Pro Football Hall of Fame. Producer Tony, want to get your thoughts on this. Again, it's always special to see these guys go in. Baseball did it the week before in Cooperstown. But this was a group that I thought was really, just to see them, even during the Hall of Fame game, it just was, I don't know why, for me, it just felt special. It felt different.
Yeah, I mean, this was a really, nice group of guys. The fact that they, finally got Sterling Sharp into the Hall of Fame. His career cut short because of that bad neck injury he suffered while he was just at the top of the game.
Yeah,
he probably had that 3-year stretch is one of the best 3-year stretches a wideout has ever had. And the other guys that went in, Antonio Gates, you spent so much time in his career just hoping he might get to a Super Bowl. Never did. And that's the thing about this group of Hall of Famers. They're great players with great numbers. None of them ever won a Super Bowl. The Super Bowl doesn't define NFL greatness to me. These guys all did the very best they could. It's such a team game. You have to have all the pieces in all the places to be able to get to that pinnacle. And even if you never get to that pinnacle, doesn't take anything away from your career. Look at Antonio Gates. Look at Jared Allen, was a beast as a defensive lineman. Nobody wanted to face him. You'd have offensive linemen going, oh, God, I got to deal with this guy for 60 minutes? You kidding me? And Eric Allen was just one of the great pure cover corners, that the league has ever seen.
Yeah.
And he did his job all the time. Look, team didn't win a Super Bowl while he was there. Wasn't Eric's fault.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those things that, and again, unlike we see in basketball where, possibly future Hall of Famers try to align the stars themselves and play together, it doesn't quite work that way in the NFL. It's just the dollars, the salary structure, it just doesn't allow for that. And even if so, let's say 3 or 4 guys did come together. You still got 22 other guys and your starters that if they're not up to par, not pulling their weight. And it's a thing too, as we've talked before, we mentioned last week, the NFL is the one league where at the beginning of the season, every single team has a shot. No other league can say that, but the NFL can, because because of the salary cap and because, again, you need the ball. Even the best teams need the ball to bounce their way at the right time. We talked about Kansas City last year. Kansas City, every single week, the ball bounced their way until the final game. And then it didn't, and you saw what happened.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the nature of football. Look, that's why the ball is oblong. It doesn't bounce normally. Baseball's round, basketball's round, hockey's flat with a puck. There's some screwy bounces in hockey, but nothing like you might find on a football field. You never know where that thing, once it's loose, and you're never sure where it's going to end up, And it just, the Football Hall of Fame is such an interesting place. The guys really take it serious when they get in. I remember seeing the video of when Shannon Sharpe showed up to tell his brother Sterling that he got inducted, that he had been voted in, that it was going to be his year finally. And just the emotional dealing with that, the first two brothers to ever make the Hall of Fame, which is very, very cool. I'm sure we'll have another set coming up probably next year as Eli heads that potential 2026 class that's getting ready to come in. He and Drew Brees and a few others, you can kind of see already who's going to be among that mix come next season. But it's such a special place, and the speeches are always very moving. They're always very thankful. I loved how Antonio Gates talked about all of his coaches in his speech. Sterling Sharpe talked about his high school coach and the guys that helped get him to where he was. It's just such a great outpouring of emotion at that time, that you really see how much the game meant to these players.
Yeah, totally agree. And so salute to the class of 2025. As you mentioned, look forward to next year's class. More big names of guys who just really just were above and beyond spectacular. And it's always one of the best times of year, late July, with Cooperstown one weekend, Canton the next weekend. It's always pretty special. Hey, stay with us. We're going to talk a little college football. There's a big change in the offseason, not among head coaches, but among coordinators. In the Big Ten, will it shift the balance of power in that conference and maybe even in the country as teams vie for a championship? That's next on the Sports IQ.
Packages start at $29.99 a month with signed agreement. Restrictions apply. Speak to a representative for complete offer details. See Vivint.com for license details. Terms and conditions apply.
Homeowners, if you're looking for the best in-home security and smart home technology at a price you can actually afford, we have great news. Now you can get Vivint's award-winning home security systems starting at about $1 a day. U.S. News and World Report has recognized Vivint as the best professionally installed home security system of 2022. And right now, you can get Vivint's home security technology for about $1 a day. Plus, get free professional installation from a licensed technician. Protect your home and loved ones for as low as $1 a day. Call right now for your free home security consultation.
800-613-8053. 800-613-8053. 800-613-8053. That's 800-613-8053.
If I was your mother and you had a drug problem, I'd grab you by the ear and make you call and get help. You can be in treatment tomorrow and start to get clean in 7 days. Follow Mom's advice and call the Detox and Treatment Helpline now. Write this number down.
877-927-3380. 877-927-3380. That's 877-927-3380.
You're locked in to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Hey, I promised you the story about the reason why you don't rent your home out to strangers to conduct poker games. Gilbert Arenas, who is a guy who, let's be honest, trouble has found him over his career, bad decisions. Arrested late last week on charges of illegal poker games. Arenas, one time, I love when you go on basketballreference.com, they have all the nicknames of what they were called. He was called the hibachi at one point because he could heat up, he could cook. And for a 3-game stretch in his career when he was with Washington, he did that. I mean, he averaged, 25 to 29 points per game, 3-time All-Star during that time, during the heyday of his talents. Left Arizona after a sophomore year. But the report here is that he was arrested for conducting illegal high-stakes poker games at his mansion in Southern California. I guess he rented out his home for these between September 2021 and July of 2022. So we're just out of COVID, right? The report here, and I'm reading this from ESPN.com, what they put out this morning, or what they put out on the story last week. This was a big deal. They hired chefs, valets, armed security, young women to serve drinks and give massages and offer companionship, whatever that means, in exchange for tips. So anyway, his co-conspirators conducted these things. He rented his house out, and now I guess he's facing like up to 5 years in prison. Now, again, as his attorney said, we're presumed innocent until proven guilty, right? But Gilbert Arenas, dude, come on. If you remember the issue of the gun in the locker room by Javaris Crittenton that wound up seeing his career ended, and Crittenton, I think now he's actually I think in the federal penitentiary, I think in Georgia for like armed robbery or attempted murder. I don't know, something terrible. But Crittenton is behind bars. His career he didn't make the money that Arenas did. But if you recall, Gilbert Arenas, he was a early second round pick out of Arizona to Golden State. Back in 2001. And during his rookie season, Sports Illustrated did a spread on Gilbert Arenas and his tricked out Cadillac Escalade. I mean, it had the rims, it had tinted windows, it had several video game systems, it had big screens. I mean, he's grinning, he's there, he's in this, it was white. And you can look this up, I'm not making this up. When the story ran, I actually told my wife, I said, okay, wait, he's a second round pick. And I looked it up. He was making $330,000 a year before taxes. He doesn't have that kind of coin. Like, what is he doing? Well, since then it's come out stories. He's admitted that he was so broke during his rookie year, he actually slept at Oracle Arena. He couldn't afford a place to live because he had the tricked out Escalade. And then, of course, there was a poker game allegedly was the reason why he had the issue with Javaris Crittenton in the Wizards locker room. We don't really know. But anyway, Gilbert Arenas, sadly, has been someone who's made really bad decisions. And so, again, he's presumed innocent till proven guilty. Let's see what happens with all this. But word of the wise, don't rent your house out for somebody else to conduct poker games and whatever else at your place. It's Larry telling you, just don't do it. Find other ways to, I don't know. Go be a telemarketer on the phone. Go take one of those jobs. Work weekends at a warehouse, stocking shelves, something. You can do it. We can get it there together. All right, let's get to college football right now. As we talked about earlier, big change after Ohio State won the national title, finally breaking through back in January. Their defensive coordinator, Jim Knowles, leaves Ohio State and goes to Big Ten rival Penn State, okay? A team that also reached the playoffs, advanced in the playoffs, and many feel right now could be the team to beat. They're a veteran. Everything's in place for them right now in State College to win it all here in January 2026. So Jim Knowles, big thing for him is their camp is now underway. They paid massive money to get him there on James Franklin's staff. And so Jim Knowles talking about making the move here this season to the rival Nittany Lions. Let's listen into a bit of that.
I think in today's game of football, it needs to be somewhat complicated because you need to have answers for everything, particularly at this level. Offenses don't run the same things in college, which is more in the NFL they do. So you better have all different kinds of answers. But the key point you made is in the teaching and installing, of it. And I've gotten better at that. And I have to, particularly coming into a situation like this. Our charge is to be great now. So if it's too complicated or I can't get it installed in a way that the players pick it up quickly, then that's my fault. So I think I've developed a process that helps move it along at a more rapid pace.
Over here on the right, Tyler. How are you today?
Hey, Tyler.
I wanted to ask about two linebackers that you've gotten a chance to see for a few practices now. Tony, who wasn't obviously available in the spring, and then Amari, who we saw you put out was your defender of the day for practice one. What did he do to kind of earn that in your mind, and how would you evaluate what you've seen from Tony this year?
Yeah, I didn't get to see Tony in the spring, right, because he was out. Certainly got to watch a lot of film on him and saw his talent. But just in a couple days, very impressed. Very impressed. He seems to have developed physically in the off season, and not only that, but he's picked things up quickly, which is tough to do when you don't get the reps on the field. So in the first 2 days, I've seen his knowledge of the defense has been impressive, and he's able to perform, within the scheme and utilize his talents, in a way that he kind of jumped out in the first 2 days. Amari, again, same thing. Just really watching film on him. Because he transferred here, but in 2 days, I see a lot of natural linebacker skills. And you don't see that as much in this day and age of college football, because a lot of linebackers are, converted from other positions. And there's a skill to playing linebacker that a lot of it is innate and instinctual. And, we're at LBU. So, had a lot of great ones here. And you can just see those guys, when you look at the past and how they made plays, was a lot of it's through natural instinct, through things that you can't teach. So with Amari in the first 2 days, I see a lot of that natural instinct.
In the front right here, Greg.
Coach, you mentioned Tony not being a guy you got to see this spring, but he wasn't the only one that's seen as a potential starter or contributor who wasn't available. So do you feel like you're where you want to be in terms of your install with your best guys, top too deep, so to speak? Do you feel like you're a little bit behind, or do you feel like you're in a spot where you're okay with everything?
I think we're in a good spot. And the first 2 days, have shown that they responded to the installation without getting the reps. Tony's an example. Denai, Zane, AJ wasn't out there all the time. So it was definitely a concern, because not having seen them do it on the field, it was a concern. So far, so good, So the pace of the installation will really depend on how well those guys perform it on the field. So as long as they keep doing well, and it's just an early sample size, but we get to press forward at a rapid pace.
On the right, Johnny.
Good afternoon, Jim. As you guys sift through the 2 deep and even 3 deep at defensive tackle, how much of a help and how much of a benefit is it to have someone like Zane, already well established?
It's huge. When you can have your defensive tackles, I always say, when your defensive tackles make tackles, right, instead of using up blocks, but when they're actually productive, it changes the whole way that you plan defense. And Zane's that guy. He's that guy who can do that immediately, who has done it. And now we, like you said, we have to build the depth around, and there are a lot of candidates. The other guy I didn't get to see in the spring was Ford. Really impressed with him in the first 2 days. Really impressed. And the coaches said good things about him, but it's the same deal. I did not get to see him actually do it. And he's really jumped out at me first couple of days.
You got time for one more. Rich in the front.
Hi, Jim. You have coached some very, very good defensive backs, and I was just wondering, what have you seen from AJ and Elliott just in these two practices, and what do you expect from them during the season?
Yeah, don't forget about AC too. Yeah. And the new guy who should have been a senior in high school, Darius, impressive. If I had to use one word, it would be impressive. Terry Smith has built an awesome culture in that room. You know, those guys are playmakers. So I'm going to set things up for them to make plays. I saw it in the spring. I'm seeing it already in 2 days. They are a real strength of our defense.
That was Penn State defensive coordinator Jim Knowles. A quick timeout. We'll talk a little bit more about that and get to the number 25 team in college football as we stand right now. That's next.
Everything is expensive right now. Gas, food, you name it. You're spending more, you are making the same or less money. So, what do? You rack up credit card debt. That's what you do. It's not your fault. It's the economy. And guess what? If you rack up too much credit card debt like some of us, you can't pay your bills. Then the credit card companies, as nice as they are, start hounding you for money. Then you start your downward spiral. A smart thing for you to do is to call the Zero Debt. They can help you consolidate all your credit card bills into one affordable payment. Millions of people have done it. It works to make you debt-free. Make this free call right now. It costs you nothing to learn more.
800-507-7293. 800-507-7293. 800-507-7293. That's 800-507-7293.
Welcome back here to the show, and producer Tony joining us right now. Tony, you know, we've talked about Penn State. We've talked with Tom Hannafin, a couple of weeks ago here. I think this is a team right now that everything feels like it's set in place for them.
Yeah, I think they've got all the bases covered. You bring back Drew Aller, who is an All-American caliber quarterback, has to make some better decisions, but that shouldn't be an issue. You've got great running backs. You've got offensive line. Their wide receivers were their big issue last year. If they can get some production out of that room, their offense will be much better. The defense is still stout. Yeah, they lost a few pieces off of that defense, but they return an awful lot of talent, and they've got a freshman in there that Coach Knowles was talking about, who is just reportedly just tearing it up over the first 2 days here in spring practice. So the pieces are there in place. Let me just say this. I'm not a James Franklin fan. He's one of those coaches that just, to me, he can get you to the cusp, but he's not going to get you over. He's kind of like McDermott up with Buffalo. He keeps getting them to the playoffs, can never get them over the hump. And some coaches are just like that. And that's, if there's an issue in Penn State, it's not going to be Jim Knowles. It's going to be James Franklin.
Okay. We will see what happens in 2025. Of course, not the last time we'll talk about Penn State here on the show, because they're going to be one of the top 5 teams all season, I think. But let's get to, we're going to break down the top. You've got, I'm going to give it to you. You've got a top 25 that, by the way, that I sign off on, that I think is accurate, and it's a lot of fun. And so we're going to break down and kind of go through a team a day, every day up until we get to number 1. Maybe Penn State could be number 1. Maybe Ohio State, defending champs. Georgia's in the mix. We will see who else is in there. That's later on in the month. We'll talk about that. But I want to start first, Tony, with team number 25 on your top 25.
Yeah, I gave that slot to the Baylor Bears. They're playing the Big 12. Dave Aranda was on the hot seat last year, and he went into the year on the hot seat. Well, they kind of struggled in the beginning but then began to put it together in the second half of the season. Their offense really started to click after that midway point. Down the stretch in the last 6 games, they averaged 34 points and about 440 yards on offense. They were much better in pass protection. The offensive line started coming together. They returned 3 members of that all-star, 4 starters back from that line, including 2 guys who were all Big 12 selections. So they've got some pieces in place offensively. And the best part about this team is, look, you can find Baylor, and it's going to be run, and let's run some more, right? It's going to be like old-fashioned football here, right? Bryson Washington, Dawson Pendergrass had almost 1,700 yards last season and 18 touchdowns. Both averaged nearly 6 yards a carry. Look, if you can get that kind of production from an offensive line and from running backs, ain't no need to throw the football. I remember Lou Holtz back in his heyday with Notre Dame said, look, you go back to pass, 3 things can happen. 2 of them are bad. So let's try to do that as little as possible. And I think that's the way Baylor's going to wind up attacking things this year. The question will be, can their defense hold up?
Yeah. One thing I love about the Big 12 as well, we spend so much time talking about the SEC and the Big 10, and for good reason. But the Big 12 is one that they've always been, before they expanded, and I think even last year we saw this, they've got so much talent in the league top to bottom. And we saw last year, you had a 4-way tie right there, which tells you right there in terms of where they are. So for a team like Baylor, you'll have ample chances to get some quality wins and to build a resume that maybe you challenge for the playoff. We'll see what happens. But nothing else, to have a very respectable season deserving of a top 25 ranking and a chance to get into a good bowl game.
Yeah, I think, the Big 12 is an exciting conference. There's a lot of offense down there, which, again, some of that is going to play right into Baylor's hands. If you can control the clock, if you can run the football regularly and make the game shorter, that keeps those high-powered offenses off the field. You don't give those SMUs, you don't give the Utahs, the Arizonas, the Arizona States of the world chances to keep getting on the field and putting up points on your defense, which is not the heart and soul of this team, right? They're getting better. They have a lot of transfers come in. They picked up a couple of big-time linebackers, which should help them out. But again, it's not going to be the strength of this ball club. So again, if you can play that pound and ground style, you can keep those offenses on the sideline. SMU is going to be chomping at the bit wanting to get the football when they don't get it all that often. Sometimes you make quarterback makes mistakes just based off that, because they're like, oh God, the clock is ticking. I got to get something done here. I haven't had it in 8 minutes. Let's do something, and you make a mistake. And that leads to a short field, and that leads to extra points if you're the offense. So look for Baylor. I think, I put them in at 25. They may end up being a little bit better than that, but I'm just kind of suspect right now on that defense. I just don't know. We're going to know about Baylor in the early part of the season. Really, their schedule is brutal off the top. They've got Auburn, they've got SMU, they've got Arizona State in 3 of the first 4 weeks. The only gimme is Samford in there has a scrimmage game in week number 3. But if they can get through that, and if they can be 3-1 through that, they're going to be a contender for the Big 12 title.
Yeah.
If something falters and they wind up 1-3 and the only win is over Samford, Dave Aranda might want to put the house on the market.
Yeah. Start contacting that realtor and have your wife take care of that while you're on your way to practice, because you're not going to be here much longer. I agree. So Baylor at number 25. We want to shift gears very quickly because we've got a moment of awe coming up. Tony, we had a moment of awe until something else happened. This is pretty cool. Cameron Young finally breaking through, getting his first ever win on the PGA Tour. But in doing so, he wins the Wyndham Championship. He becomes the 1,000th player to get a win in a PGA Tour event, going all the way back to 1860 and the British Open. He's a 1,000th player to hoist a trophy.
That was I thought that was really interesting. It just shows how long the PGA Tour is around. When I saw it, I thought, wow, I really thought there was only maybe like 300 or 400 different winners.
Yeah.
I had no idea. 1,000 different winners on the PGA Tour since the tour started. That is just an amazing stat. But we've got a really good historical one coming up for the listeners.
Yeah, this is really good. That's pretty good, but your moment of all we think is even better, and that's next.
Fans of big sports radio and sports spectacular podcasts have a new home on the Chief Sports Network. Find your favorite programs and content all in one place by downloading the Chief Sports app in your mobile device. Created in South Carolina, the Chief Sports Network is the home of an expanding network of live and podcast format programming. It is also the home of one of the leading national college football podcasts, JC and Morgan, hosted by ESPN's Mike Morgan and 24/7 Sports' JC Sherbert. Download the Chief Sports app for free and find all of your favorite programming under one easy umbrella. Thanks to all of our markets for your loyal support of Big Sports Radio and our Sports Spectacular podcast, and we look forward to connecting with you anywhere in the world on the Chief Sports app.
Okay, time now for the moment of all that we can't wait to bring to you. It was on this date in 1982 when Joel Youngblood made history by becoming the first Major League Baseball player to get 2 hits for 2 different teams in 2 different cities. He began the day with the Mets, getting a hit for them against the Cubs at Wrigley Field back before Wrigley had lights. Then after the game, he was traded to Montreal, hops a flight, gets north of the border up there to Olympic Stadium, where he gets a hit for the Expos against the Phillies. And so Joel Youngblood will never get into the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, voted as a player anyway, but he's always in the record books, the first ever 2 hits for 2 teams in 2 cities. How crazy is that? All right. So moral of the story again, what did we learn today? Don't rent out your house for poker games. And be here tomorrow for the Sports IQ. We have some great guests to line up for you, for all of us here. And make it a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith, Monday through Friday. Continue the conversation at SportsIQ LS. We'll see you next time.